Yeah, if you have tea with one guy or you break peste with another guy, you know, every time there's a new government in the EU and the UK and the US, we relive an experiment that Iranian society has already
Yes.
largely understood and put a checkbox through.
Yes.
So this is the kind of this revolving door of trying to use diplomacy only or exclusively. So that's philosophy.
Can you put into simple terms what the Western obsession with the JCPOA is, whether it's the United States or Europe? Is it actually about security in the region?
So I will do my best to condense it down into a couple of drivers, particularly the European drivers. There is a philosophical interest, there is a political interest, there is a security interest, and there is an economic or mercantilist interest. And these four, I'd love it to be three, so that way I could say it's an unholy trinity. But these four basically define this European obsession, particularly the EU obsession. Look at Brussels in particular on this, with seeing things through the JCPOA lens. Number
Okay.
one, philosophical. The 500,000 foot philosophy of liberalism that you can adjudicate conflicts through engagement and dialogue and diplomacy
Right.
rather than violence. So
Let's sit
in this
down and talk
case,
it out. Right. Right.
exactly. Rather than listen to what Khamenei is saying, they're putting words in Khamenei's mouth. They're trying to cover their ears. So this is one.
Right.
Two is politics.
Which, by the way, is a logical and fair approach that
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
anybody would appreciate, except we're 44 years into realizing that negotiating with this regime doesn't work, right? So that's why the community is the Iranian diaspora would be a little frustrated at this point with the idea of let's just sit down and have tea with Khamenei and maybe we could make sense of this.
Yeah, if you have tea with one guy or you break peste with another guy, every time there's a new government in the EU and the UK and the US, we relive an experiment that Iranian society has already
Yes.
largely understood and put a checkbox through.
Yes.
So this is the kind of this revolving door of trying to use diplomacy only or exclusively. So that's philosophy. Two is politics, and this is not a knock on the EU, but in terms of EU foreign policy diplomatic achievements, there haven't been that many, and there haven't been that have been shared continuously across what you call the External Action Service in Brussels. So you've had different EU foreign policy chiefs over time. They almost all see the Iran nuclear issue, given that many European states, even prior to the advent of the deal, were negotiating with Iran on this. They almost all see it the same way. So the JCPOA was a major political win for this European philosophical approach, and they're looking to safeguard that win. And when the US left it in 2018, this was a highly emotive, highly politically charged, highly personalized
Sure.
deal. And so they want to protect that. So there's so much about protecting the political brand. So philosophy, politics. Three is security. The Europeans, and particularly European states, always rank order things, and many states do, in fact, should do this, but interest, time, resources, and they simply have always had a wedding cake like approach to the Iran problem. They'll sometimes talk tough on the human rights issue. They'll occasionally do things like throw out Iranian ambassadors when there's terrorism on European soil.
Right.
There was even a time in history in 2012, 2013, when there were more EU designations on Iran than America. They'll even do things like that. But they will continue to, for purposes of security, say that a nuclear Iran will make things much harder. So if you worry about this architecture of threat, treating it like a wedding cake, they will always focus on that top layer of the wedding cake, the nuclear issue. So for security reasons, they will say that non-proliferation must come first.
Right.
And bureaucratically, they're structured to think that way. And then finally, mercantilism. For many years pre-nuclear deal, the Iranian government used to go shopping across Europe, Central and Eastern Europe in particular. Even Ukraine now is a place that they've gone shopping. In Ukraine in the past is a place that they've gone shopping for things like land attack cruise missiles and military component parts. The regime has always treated Europe as a place to procure things they could obviously never get from America. And on the European side, although they were cognizant of this threat, they were also looking to make a buck or looking to make a euro. And there's lots of small and medium enterprises that don't always do business with America, but do business with lots of emerging markets. And so you tie together with oil, and there becomes an outsized
Yeah.
financial interest. So
Yeah.
these four forces.
That the last one is pretty naked, and I mean, there's the deals to be done. We even if it's with the devil, that we're on one side of our mouth saying, stop with the human rights abuses. We'll make those deals with this. So that one is going to come as no surprise to anyone. Although full marks for using the word mercantilism in the 21st century.